It's among the most feared and reviled symbols in the world, the very sight of which instantly evokes thoughts of hatred, mass murder, and the worst traits of humanity. It is so repugnant as to be outright banned in many parts of the world. It is, of course, the swastika, a symmetric cross with short lines protruding at right angles from the end of its arms. Infamously adopted by Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party to represent their dream of a thousand-year Third Reich, 80 years after the end of the Second World War, the symbol continues to be used by neo-Nazis and other far-right groups to symbolize antisemitism, white supremacy, and other hateful ideologies. Yet the Nazis did not invent the swastika. The symbol had existed for thousands of years before Adolf Hitler was even born, representing nothing more nefarious than good luck or fortune. Indeed, up until the 1930s, it was ubiquitous in Western culture, appearing on jewelry, buildings, sports jerseys, and even in the names of towns. And even today, in many Eastern countries, it continues to be widely used, carrying none of the stigma it has acquired elsewhere in the world. So what happened? Where did the swastika come from, and how did it go from a beloved good luck charm to a loathed symbol of hate and oppression in less than 2 decades? Let's find out as we dive into the fascinating and controversial history of the swastika. Just before we get back into yet another way the Nazis ruined everything, you know what doesn't ruin anything? Today's sponsor, Plod Notepin, the brilliant little feature-packed gadget that saves thoughts so your brain doesn't have to. For those unfamiliar, the little brother of the Plod Note, the Plod Notepin is a tiny, lightweight recording device that clips onto your shirt, bag, or notebook thanks to its magnetic pin design. You can even wear it as a necklace or a wristband, making it super easy to use on the go. One press and it's recording. No app fumbling, no worrying your phone is going to die or an app crash, or incessantly checking your phone to make sure it's still recording. Just one button and instant capture with zero fuss. But the Plod Notepin doesn't stop with super high quality audio recording. It also comes with industry-leading transcription with actual extreme accuracy, unlike most in this space. It has speaker-labeled, multilingual, crystal clear accuracy with 300 minutes of free transcription per month, supporting a whopping 112 languages. And because reading your transcript of your boss or professor's latest lecture line by line later is a form of modern torture, Plod's AI gives you intelligent summaries. You get the good stuff, decisions, action items, big ideas, not the 14 minutes of filler before someone actually says something important. And if you need to find something later in your countless meetings or lecture recordings, use Ask AI in the app and it will jump right to the part in one or more of your recordings you're looking for, like a GPS for your scattered conversations. Not only that, but the Notepin can record for 20 hours straight on a single charge, has 64 gigabytes of storage, which is close to 500 hours of recording, deletes long silences automatically, and even stitches recordings together if you switch between meetings like you're speed dating your coworkers. On top of all that, all recordings are securely locked down with SOC-2 and HIPAA compliance. Your ideas stay yours, full stop. Bottom line, Plod Notepin is a wearable note taker that works quietly in the background so you can stay fully in the moment, or has your back if you accidentally space off in the meeting and later your boss says, "Get on it, everybody," and you're now wondering what you're supposed to be getting on. So if you're someone who lives in meetings, interviews, lectures, or just has too many random thoughts at once you need to make sure to remember later, use the link below for 10% off any hardware and also 10% off when you buy 2 software items. There's also a back-to-school promo going on right now, so don't miss it. The swastika is one of the oldest symbols in human history, with the earliest known example being found on a mammoth tusk carving of a bird unearthed in Ukraine and dating back to the late Paleolithic period some 12,000 years ago. The swastika is also one of the most widespread human symbols on Earth, with variations popping up independently throughout history in East Asia, South Asia, Eurasia, Africa, and even North America. This ubiquity has led anthropologists to speculate that the symbol was originally inspired by some natural object or phenomenon universal to all human societies. For example, while most versions of the swastikas are thought to represent the sun, as they do in modern-day Hinduism, Russian archaeologist Gennady Danovich proposed that the Chinese version of the symbol originally represented the constellation Ursa Major, aka the Chariot, Big Dipper, or Plow, rotating around the North Star, or, more broadly, the universe and the creativity of God. Similarly, beloved cosmologist and science communicator Carl Sagan suggested that the symbol was inspired by sightings of comets, while in the Zoroastrian religion, which emerged in Persia 8,000 years ago, the four arms of the symbol represented the four elements: earth, air, fire, and water. Meanwhile, to the Pima people of Arizona, the symbol represents the four winds, while to the Navajo people it is known as the Sin Narwhali, or whirling log. And to the Guna people of Panama and Colombia, the symbol represents the mythical octopus that created the world. The more familiar name today, swastika, comes from the Sanskrit word swastika, meaning conducive to well-being or simply good luck or auspiciousness. To be more precise, this word refers to the specific version of the symbol with arms pointed in the clockwise direction, which symbolizes the sun. The less common counterclockwise version is known as the svastika and is associated with the night and with Kali, the Hindu goddess of death. In addition to the sun, the four arms of the swastika also represent the four holy Hindu scriptures, or Vedas, while its rotational symmetry symbolizes the eternal, unchanging nature of the universe. Indeed, the word is used many times in the Rig Veda, such as in the verse, "May Almighty God of infinite glory be auspicious to us. May the all-knowing lords of the universe be of auspiciousness to us. May the powerful protection of the universe bring auspiciousness to us. May the Lord of Lords, the Supreme Being, bring fortune to us." The symbol appears widely in Hindu temples and artwork and is an important component of many rituals, including marriages and Diwali, the festival of lights, often being constructed as a rangali, or colored sand painting, or assembled from Deepak oil lamps. The swastika also plays an important role in Jainism, aka the Jain Dharma, another Indian religion which emphasizes non-violence towards all living things. In Jainism, the swastika has two main meanings, representing both Suprasvanastha, one of the religion's 24 historical spiritual teachers, as well as the four gatis, or conditions a soul can be reincarnated as: a human, a heavenly being, an infernal being, or an animal or plant. Finally, in Buddhism, the swastika represents the auspicious footprints of the Buddha, and the stationery is often displayed on the Buddha's chest, hand, or feet. It's also sometimes used in place of the Dharma chakra, or dharmic wheel. These versions of the swastika are thought to have originated in the Indus Valley civilization of northwestern India, with the earliest mention of the word coming from a Sanskrit grammatical guide dating to the 6th or 5th century BCE. But of course, as previously mentioned, the symbol itself is far older. From the Indian subcontinent, the swastika was gradually introduced across East Asia by the spread of Buddhism, and west across Eurasia to Europe via international trade. Along the way, the symbol acquired a variety of local names. For example, the swastika is known as the Wanzi in Chinese, Manji in Japanese, Zak in Mongolian, and Yungdrung in Tibetan. In classical Greek, it was known as the tetragrammatian, or four gammas, as the fourth hooked arms resembled the capital Greek letter gamma. Indeed, the modern French term for the swastika is translated as gamma cross. But whatever its name, the symbol was extensively used in the classical era as a decorative motif in temples and other structures. However, in Greek and Roman architecture, the swastika was rarely used on its own, instead usually forming part of interlinked or tessellating patterns, today often known as meanders or Greek keys on floors or friezes. A similar pattern known as the sayagata also appears frequently in classical Chinese and Japanese art and architecture. These motifs were later copied by neoclassic architects starting in the 18th century, which is why many courthouses, legislators, banks, and other large office buildings are sometimes filled with swastikas. Like many pagan symbols, the swastika was also co-opted by the early Christians and appears in many medieval churches, including the rock-hewn churches in Ethiopia, St. Sophia Cathedral in Ukraine, and Amiens Cathedral in France as a variant of the Greek or equal-armed Christian cross. The symbol also appeared widely in medieval European heraldry, but if we listed every single pre-modern use of the swastika, we'd be here all day, so let's just stop and move on. Suffice it to say, the symbol was everywhere. Yet despite its ubiquity in classical and medieval art and architecture, it was not until the late 19th century that the swastika truly began to catch on in Western culture as a symbol of both good fortune and racist ideology. This renaissance was largely kicked off by German archaeologist Heinrich Schliemann, who in the 1870s discovered what he believed to be the Homeric city of Troy off the coast of Turkey. Among the artifacts Schliemann unearthed over 5 years of excavations were over 1,800 fragments of pottery adorned with what he identified as Indian-style swastikas, for I recognize at the first glance that the swastika upon one of those 3 pot buttons, which were discovered on Bishop's Island near Königswalde on the right bank of the Oder and have given rise to very many learned discussions, while no one recognized the mark as the exceedingly significant religious symbol of our remote ancestors. In 1872, French Orientalist Ernest Louis Burnouf of the French School at Athens contacted Schliemann and argued that the discovery of the swastikas at Troy constituted compelling evidence for the theory of Aryanism. This pseudoscientific and pseudo-historical concept, which emerged in the mid-19th century, held that the so-called Caucasian peoples, what modern ethnographers refer to as Proto-Indo-Europeans, comprised 3 distinct races: Aryans, Semites, and Hamites. According to this ideology, the Aryans, defined by distinctively Nordic features like pale skin, blonde hair, and blue eyes, were the master race responsible for all of history's great civilizations, while the Semitic and Hamitic races, modern-day Arabs and Jews and Ethiopians, respectively, were inherently inferior and uncivilized. Naturally, Schliemann enthusiastically accepted Burnouf's interpretation and began obsessively seeking other archaeological connections between Troy and other great classical civilizations and the so-called Aryan race, focusing in particular on the swastika symbol. For example, when Schliemann later excavated the ruins of Mycenae, domain of the Homeric king Agamemnon, he interpreted many of the patterns he found on pottery and gold jewels as being derived from the Indian swastika. The cross with the marks of 4 nails may often be seen, as well as the swastika, which is usually also represented with 4 points indicating the 4 nails. These signs cannot but represent the swastika formed by 2 pieces of wood which were laid across and fixed with 4 nails, and in the joint of which the holy fire was produced by friction by a 3rd piece of wood. But both the cross and the swastika symbol occur for the most part only on the vases with geometrical patterns. I am now able to prove that the swastika symbol, which I find in Emil Burnouf's Sanskrit lexicon under the name swastika, were already regarded thousands of years before Christ as religious symbols of the very greatest importance among the early progenitors of the Aryan races in Bactria and in the villages of Oxus, at a time when Germans, Indians, Pelasgians, Celts, Persians, Slavonians, and Iranians still formed one nation and spoke one language. Yet, while modern archaeologists dismiss this link as tenuous at best, Schliemann was convinced that the swastika was the key to tracing the history of the Aryan race and began uncovering variants of the symbol all over the world, from Tibet to West Africa. As anthropologist Gwendolyn Lick wrote in 1997, when Heinrich Schliemann discovered swastika-like decorations on pottery fragments in all archaeological levels at Troy, it was seen as evidence for a racial continuity and proof that the inhabitants of the site had been Aryan all along. The link between the swastika and Indo-European origin, once forged, was impossible to discard. It allowed the projection of nationalist feelings and associations onto a universal symbol, which hence served as a distinguishable boundary marker between non-Aryan, or rather non-German, and German identity. As a result of Schliemann's headline-grabbing excavations at Troy and Mycenae, the swastika experienced a surge in popularity in the West, becoming a ubiquitous token of good luck. It appeared on jewelry and on postcards and advertisements for Coca-Cola and Carlsberg beer, and even material produced by the Boy Scouts and Girl Clubs of America. Indeed, the Girls Club magazine was even called Swastika and distributed swastika badges to members as a reward for selling copies. On top of this, at least 2 towns, Swastika, Ontario, founded in 1908, and Swastika, New York, founded in 1913, were named after the symbol, as was at least 1 hockey team, the Windsor, Ontario Swastikas, who played from 1905 to 1916 and wore the symbol prominently on their jerseys. On top of that, before famous American aviator Charles Lindbergh made the first solo, non-stop aerial crossing of the Atlantic Ocean on May the 20th, 1927, employees of Ryan Airlines who built Lindbergh's aircraft, the Spirit of St. Louis, scrawled their names and various good luck messages on the inside of the propeller spinner, including a very prominent swastika. The swastika was also used in the logos of many commercial brands, including the KRIT Motor Car Company of Detroit, Michigan, and it was incorporated into the insignia of several military units, appearing prominently on aircraft of the Latvian and Finnish Air Forces, as well as the insignia of the U.S. Army's 45th Infantry Division. Note, this was an all Native American unit. Indeed, the Native American swastika was used on Arizona road signs until the 1940s, while the left-facing swastika remains a common national symbol in Finland. From this, if you visit the Slav Falls Hydroelectric Generator Station in Manitoba, Canada, you'll find the data plates on the generators emblazoned with large swastikas. This is not because the plant is run by Nazis, but rather that the generators had been built by a Finnish company. Unsurprisingly, given its ancient and semi-mystical roots, the swastika was also widely embraced by various esoteric and occult groups, including the Theosophical Society founded in New York City in 1875 by Russian mystic Helena Blavatsky. But while most uses of the swastika in the West at this time were largely benign, the symbol's association with Aryanism, popularized by the likes of Heinrich Schliemann and Emil Louis Bernoff, led to its increasing adoption by far-right nationalist and racist groups. Among the very first was the anti-Semitic Romanian Democratic Nationalist Party, founded in 1910 by politician Alexandru Cuza and Nicola Iorga. As Cuza later explained in 1921, he chose the swastika as his party's symbol because the swastika is linked to the cult of the sun. It appears in the countries inhabited by the Pelasgic race, which we find from the very beginning in our lands. In general, the swastika is the distinctive sign of the Aryan race. Signs were found on our soil. Being here since ancient times, the swastika therefore is, in the first place, ours, Romanian by its descent from the Thracian Aryans. The swastika is our national emblem. The cross is the emblem of our faith, just as it is with all Christian peoples. It is only together that the swastika and the cross display our entire being, our body and soul. We are Aryans and Christians. At the same time, the symbol was widely used by various German groups as a symbol of Germanic pride, including the German Gymnast League. Over time, the symbol became increasingly associated with the pan-German ethno-nationalist folkish movement, which advocated, among other things, the unity of the Germanic peoples, the inherent right of Germans to quote, have living space, agrarian romanticism, and eventually anti-Semitism. Indeed, the anti-Semitic periodical National Tidskrift began using the symbol as early as 1917. Not only did the swastika link the folkish movement to the supposed history of the Aryan race, but it was also closely associated with the Nordic and Germanic mythologies popularized by the works of Richard Wagner and other artists, with some archaeologists and ethnographers arguing that in Norse folklore, the symbol represented Mjolnir, the legendary hammer of Thor, god of thunder. This, at last, brings us to the single most infamous adopter of the swastika, the Nazi Party, who, as ever, ruin everything. Founded on January 5th, 1919 as the German Workers' Party, on February the 24th, 1920, the group changed its name to an unpronounceable German word that I'm just gonna say NSDAP. On August the 7th of that year, the party adopted as its official symbol a variant of the swastika, personally chosen by Adolf Hitler himself, who became official party leader or Führer on July 29th, 1921. As Hitler explained in his memoir, Mein Kampf, I myself, meanwhile, after innumerable attempts, had laid down a final form, a flag with a red background, a white disc, and a black hooked cross in the middle. After long trials, I also found a definite proportion between the size of the flag and the size of the white disc, as well as the shape and thickness of the hooked cross. Of course, the Nazi swastika was far from the first emblem used to represent fascism. That dubious honor belongs to the fasces, an axe surrounded by a bundle of sticks. An ancient talisman of Roman imperial power, the fasces was adopted in 1922 by Benito Mussolini and used as the symbol and namesake of his fascist party and ideology. Interestingly, the Benedictine choir school at Lambeck Abbey, Austria, which a young Adolf Hitler attended for several months, had a large swastika, the personal coat of arms of the abbot Theodorich Hagen, carved over the entrance to its monastery. But while it is possible this early encounter later inspired Hitler to choose the swastika as his party's emblem, the symbol was so ubiquitous in early 20th century Europe as to make this convenient origin story highly unlikely. Most versions of the Nazi swastika were right or clockwise facing and rotated 45 degrees, the cross being built on a 5x5 diagonal square grid. However, some Nazi iconography did use an unrotated swastika, including Hitler's personal standard, the parade standards carried by various military units, and the grandstand at the Zeppelin-filled rally grounds in Nuremberg, famously featured in the 1935 propaganda film Triumph of the Will. The symbol was usually displayed within a circle as in the NSDAP flag, though the symbol was sometimes framed in a diamond as in the insignia of the Hitler Youth. A circular version of the symbol, known as the Broken Sun Cross, was also used as the emblem of the 5th SS Panzer Division. Noteworthy, it was also previously used by the Thule Society, an occult organization that had a great deal of influence on Nazi ideas, and in 1933 was adopted by the German Faith movement, which sought sought to move Germany away from Christianity and towards a state religion based on German paganism and Nazi ideology. One of the more common display styles for the symbol was within a wreath held in the talons of the imperial eagle, a national symbol dating back to the Holy Roman Empire. For the flag of the Nazi Party, Hitler chose the colors red, white, and black, not only because they were the colors of the old German Empire, but as Hitler further explained, as National Socialists, we see our program in our flag. In red, we see the social idea of the movement. In white, the nationalistic idea. In the hooked cross, the mission of the struggle for the victory of the Aryan man, and by the same token, the victory of the idea of creative work. The NSDAP flag was first officially raised in Germany on March 14, 1933, shortly after Hitler was appointed Chancellor. Later, on September 15, 1935, the Nuremberg Laws made this emblem the official flag of Nazi Germany. Curiously, the official national flag of the Third Reich differed slightly from the NSDAP party flag in that the black swastika and white circle were positioned slightly off-center on the red field. Also, despite its ubiquity within the Reich, the symbol was strictly copyrighted by the Nazi Party, with propaganda minister Joseph Goebbels issuing a decree on May 19, 1933, banning any unauthorized commercial use of the symbol. Of course, the Nuremberg Laws did far more than simply designate an official flag. Their main focus was on disenfranchising Germany's Jews and preventing race mixing between Aryans and non-Aryans. While Adolf Hitler may have believed this Third Reich would stand for 1,000 years, in reality, it lasted barely 12, from Hitler's appointment as Chancellor on January 30th, 1933, to the Nazi surrender to the Allied forces on May 8th, 1945. But this was more than enough time to transform the swastika from being a ubiquitous token of good luck to a reviled symbol of hate, terror, and pure evil, forever and inextricably linked to Nazi Germany's monstrous political experiment. As the true horrors of the Nazi regime came to light through the liberation of concentration and death camps and the Nuremberg war crimes trials of 1946, the victorious Allied forces embarked on a concentrated campaign of denazification, defacing or destroying the hated symbol wherever they found it. Section 86 of the Criminal Code of the Federal Republic of Germany, aka West Germany, established in 1949, specifically outlawed certain political groups, particularly far-right or far-left parties, as well as their symbols as unconstitutional. Among the symbols outlawed by this section, which remains on the books to this day, are the various versions of the swastika used by the Nazis. Other extremist symbols, including the communist hammer and sickle and the emblems of Hamas and the Islamic State, are also banned, as are various phrases, songs, and gestures associated with the Third Reich, such as the Nazi salute, the Nazi anthem, and the greetings and oaths to Hitler. There are, of course, certain exceptions to these laws. For example, these symbols can be displayed in educational contexts, such as in historical documentaries and books, and on artifacts displayed in museums. Use of the swastika in a religious context, such as the Hindu, Jain, or Buddhist temples, is also allowed, as by law, religious symbols cannot be censored in Germany. Nonetheless, despite their noble intent and logical exemptions, these laws can sometimes be a little too far-reaching. For instance, on numerous occasions, German police have confiscated materials or even arrested activists for displaying images of swastikas being smashed or defaced in protest of neo-Nazis and other right-wing groups. And in another example personally experienced by this video's author, plastic scale model kits of German World War II vehicles manufactured by German companies will often omit the historically accurate symbol on their models. Several other European countries, including Hungary, Latvia, and Switzerland, have likewise banned the public display of the symbol and other Nazi emblems, whereas in the United States, such displays are constitutionally protected as free speech by the First Amendment. However, in the 2003 case, Virginia versus Black, the United States Supreme Court ruled that local governments could ban the use of certain symbols if used with intent to intimidate. Consequently, in 2024, the state of California passed the bill AB 2822, banning what is called 3 pervasive and extremely harmful symbols of hate, burning crosses, swastikas, and nooses. As a result of such bans, many neo-Nazi, white supremacists, and other far-right extremist groups have taken to adopting increasingly obscure and tangentially related symbols as alternatives to the swastika and NSDAP flag. Meanwhile, in the East, the swastika remains largely untainted by its Nazi associations and continues to be an important and revered symbol in Hinduism, Jainism, Buddhism, and other faiths. This cultural divide between East and West, however, has resulted in considerable confusion and controversy. For example, visitors in predominantly Hindu or Buddhist countries unaware of the swastika's ancient and benign history are often shocked to see the symbol adorning everything from temples to home decorations to commercial products. This has recently led to Japan discontinuing the use of the symbol on maps to mark the location of Buddhist temples. Similar controversy has recently followed various products, including trading cards, stuffed animals, and jewelry bearing the Buddhist swastika produced in Asia and exported to Western countries. And in 2007, a proposed bill banning the use of the swastika across the European Union was met with furious protests by European Hindus and Buddhists, for the bill did not distinguish between the ancient symbol of good luck and its Nazi variant. As Ramesh Kalladai of the Hindu Forum of Britain argued at the time, the swastika has been around for 5,000 years as a symbol of peace. Just because Hitler misused the symbol, abused it, and used it to propagate a reign of terror and racism and discrimination, it does not mean that its peaceful use should be banned. Similar efforts are underway to defend and reclaim North American indigenous versions of the swastika, such as the Navajo whirling log, which have completely different origins and meanings to their Eastern counterparts, as well as other uses of the symbol predating the rise of the Nazis. Indeed, during the Second World War, the provincial government of Ontario attempted to rename the town of Swastika to Winston after British Prime Minister Winston Churchill, even replacing the town's sign. The townspeople immediately rebelled and restored the original sign, adding the message, "To hell with Hitler, we had the swastika first." Nearly a century later, the town still retains its original name. Indeed, some have argued that banning the swastika not only erases thousands of years of benign use, but also amplifies the symbol's mystique and power, lending legitimacy to those groups who would continue to pervert its meaning. As Stephen Heller, author of the 2000 book, The Swastika, Symbol Beyond Redemption, explains, "I think you can't win. Either you try to extinguish it, and if that's the case, you've got to brainwash an awful lot of people, or you let it continue and it will brainwash a lot of people. As long as it captures people's imaginations, as long as it represents evil, as long as that symbol retains its charge, it's going to be very hard to cleanse it." For now, the cultural fate of the swastika, in the Western world at least, remains very much up in the air. Will the controversial symbol eventually reclaim its ancient, benevolent meaning, or will its hateful associations, unlike the regime that created them, last for 1,000 years?